The main character of a story, the protagonist, often has qualities that entice you to learn more about them. Wandering Witch is built different from many other stories. Meet Elaina. She's the kind of character that might make you want to yell at your screen. Her personality traits are being headstrong and moderately narcissistic. She also enjoys monologuing at the start of most episodes, usually about how beautiful she is. Elaina is not exactly a hero. She's also not the kind of character to expect growth from. Or is she someone who seeks to challenge the problems of the world she lives in? So, what the hell kind of character is she? Well, she's probably what explains the gap between this anime's popularity and its ranking, compared to the current fantasy big three. You know, Frieren, Dungeon Meshi, and Witch Hat Atelier. Elaina is what you might consider more of a non-interventionalist when it comes to conflict and danger. She exists inside her own bubble of morally gray observation most of the time, which seems to be quite polarizing for a lot of people. But for me, I love this kind of dynamic. It's also a big part of why I think this anime is worth watching, but we have to cover a few more things before I can fully get to that. As far back as Elena's been able to read, she set her heart on becoming a full-fledged witch who journeys across the land, traveling from one country to another in order to experience how different the world is, exactly like in her favorite storybook. Getting herself stuck in the middle of someone else's affairs is not part of that plan, but sometimes she can't help it. So, what does a fantasy protagonist do when there's no big bad monster that needs defeating, or terrible calamity set to destroy everyone's lives? Wandering Witch doesn't follow a conventional plot structure. Instead, the story unfolds as a loosely connected, but mostly episodic view of the various countries she visits and the people who she encounters while there. Sometimes her travels take her to the most confusingly stupid quarrels, like a country who can't help comparing themselves to the people next to them. Or she might find herself in the middle of some complicated family drama where it feels like the only winning move is to leave and forget what happened. Wherever her journeys take her though, what begins to consistently materialize is that Elaina is never the main reason for the events that are occurring, nor is she usually responsible for solving the problems of those around her. Simply put, her presence often impacts the people she meets far more than her magic. And magic is an intrinsic aspect of this world, though few details are explained about its logic system or limitations. But the same familiar elements of mystery and intrigue it evokes are in no short supply. 3 levels or ranks of magic users exist. Magicians at the lowest level, novice witches, and then full-fledged witches. Women seem to occupy the higher ranks exclusively. Casting a magical spell appears to be as simple as just that. No incantations or preparation seems to be required. Don't let that fool you though. Some episodes reveal just how costly its use can potentially be. Yet for Elaina, magic seems to be as natural as each new day of her journey, and is rarely a topic she spends much time talking about on its own. In fact, her only usage of it tends to be for small things, such as fixing broken roof shingles or opening doors and gates. Only once does she cast it offensively on another person, and it's not even where you would expect that to happen. I'm going to cover one portion of an episode here to keep things short, so if you don't want any spoilers for this anime, skip to the timestamp on screen. Bottled Happiness is the title of the second story of episode 3, and it's probably why some people would consider dropping this anime if they use the common 3-episode rule. Elaina finds a boy who tells her all about how he's collecting various bits and pieces of happiness. He wants to fill up his bottle and then show it to a girl, who he tells Elaina is a servant working at his house. A few scenes later, and some new context, show us the truth about this girl. Nino is her name, and unfortunately, she isn't just a servant, but a slave, purchased by the boy's father. While the actual events of the episode are not particularly dark, it should be apparent to just about anyone that when the bottle of happiness is popped open in front of her, Nino's reaction and eventual actions might not line up with the boy's hopes. He seems to be naively assuming that he's doing something good and useful for her, not understanding the reality or nuances of her situation. During the course of these events, Aside from really wanting to blast the boy's father for owning and presumably abusing Nino, Elaina mostly just sits back, watches, and then eventually leaves in order to continue on to her next location. This is probably the most conflicted moment in the anime, both for Elaina and the viewer. So if it bothers you that her behavior doesn't live up to the typical hero protagonist who sees an injustice and leaps headfirst into danger because that's just the right thing to do, well, Wandering Witch quickly swaps between both light and dark stories, usually without moralizing the content of them. I find that to be the far more interesting approach, but it's clearly not for everyone. There's no real plot development here, and that might turn some people off. There's also no real character development. This seems to be a common point of contention in some reviews. If a story lacks the typical aspects that draw you into it, why would it be worth watching? I'll attempt to convince you. Breaking down Wandering Witch into its recurring elements essentially leaves you with Elaina and the random different countries she visits. These are the only components you can be certain that any given episode will likely contain. Everything else, from which side characters might pop up or what the tone of the story will be, can go in any direction. But why is that interesting? Elaina always seems to find herself right in the middle of whatever issue is currently befalling her present location. At times, these issues are undeniably silly, like when she visits the land of truth-tellers, and we see the simple but clever tricks that are employed in order to stay honest while partaking in deception. Other instances, like in The Princess Without Subjects, demonstrate how there's almost nothing Elaina could have done to alter the events playing out around her. Contrasting these examples uncovers what I think is at the core of Wandering Witch. The unpredictability of any episode is the part that connects each individual story into the whole work. Meeting people and then saying farewell is perhaps the only consistent aspect of a traveler. What will Elaina find when she reaches her next destination? Or who will she meet? It doesn't matter, to be honest. She's going to spend some time there, do whatever it is that catches her attention, and then move on to the next place. There's little time to engage with the nuances that she encounters, or to spend getting attached to anyone or anything she finds there. This consistent inconsistency resonates with me as being far more similar to reality than most people's complaints about Elena's personality or reactions to the events she ends up witnessing. No matter the situation, Elaina usually offers support to those around her, but rarely goes so far as to impose her own will or desires onto anyone. We get to discover the weird and confusing aspects of the world Elaina exists in alongside her, while experiencing similar emotions at how wild the conflicts she finds herself in the middle of are, which is probably my favorite part of her journey. So if an episodically structured anime, with a bit of an arrogantly indulgent witch, and the lack of a coherent or continuous plot doesn't scare you away, it might just be time to join up with Elaina for a little while. Who knows what you'll encounter. If you enjoyed this video or found my perspective interesting, let me know with a comment or subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
私はこれからもただの灰の魔女でただの旅人でありたいと思います。